What's up, guys? Welcome to the Sports 2.0 show. I am your host, Tanner Kern. I'm joined by my father, Jim Kern. We are the IndyCar panelists here at the Sports 2.0 network. How you doing?
I'm doing good.
It's been too long.
For another round.
It's been too long. We've been off for about a month. It's going to be at a month. We haven't done a show for a few weeks because just not a lot going on, no races. But yeah, it's good to be back talking about IndyCar. And next week we got the Nashville Music City Grand Prix. So very excited about that.
Can't wait to go.
Yeah, very excited to go. We will be there covering it live for the Sports 2.0 network. So make sure you check that out as well, guys. Before we get into the show, get a few announcements in here. Subscribe to the Sports 2.0 network. Obviously, if you are an IndyCar fan, we have some of the greatest content on YouTube for IndyCar. Also, big baseball stuff going on right now, trade deadline. So if you're into baseball and IndyCar like myself, make sure you subscribe. Also, New Jersey, Sugar House Sportsbook promo. Use code SPORTS20 for a $250 deposit match in New Jersey. SPORTS20, link in the description below, guys. Make sure you check that out. Now, if you were going to bet on one sportsbook in New Jersey, where would you bet?
Sugar House Sportsbook.
That's the right answer there. Now you kind of got a new setup. You got an LEO shirt on. You got a racing helmet in the background. Is this because are you fully investing into the IndyCar commentator life?
Yeah, well, I had to go with a Helio t-shirt, 4-time winner, and a lot of news this week, or actually within the last couple of weeks on Helio. So yeah. I got my IndyCar hat on, compliments of my son.
and I got the
little backdrop.
Yeah, and I got the Colton Herta jersey, and you hate Colton Herta, so I don't know if we're related because I don't know how I can love Colton Herta and you can hate Colton Herta. But let's get into the show.
Well, you must really love Colton Herta because we were in a store last week and you swore it was him.
That was him. He was at Fenway Park. His girlfriend's from Boston area, I think, based on his Instagram. Yeah. So I'm assuming he was there.
I don't think he was there.
Anyway. All right. So let's get into the show. We're going to start with the IndyCar point standings. We have a lot to talk about. The silly season is in full effect. We've had testing all over the freaking country. Got a lot to talk about, but we'll start with the standings here. Nothing's really changed. We haven't had a race in a while. IndyCar messed up the schedule, in our opinion. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. Let's just go through the standings here, though. We got Palou first, Pato, Scott Dixon, Joseph Newgarden climbing up there. Finally got his first win of the year. Then we got Marcus Ericsson, Simon Pagenaud, Colton Herta, Rinus VeeKay, Graham Rahal, Sato, Power, and Rossi round out the top 12. Now, at this point in the season, realistically, these are the guys that have a chance to win something. So what are your thoughts on the standing so far, and who's going to make that late season push and really do something out of this group?
Well, I think obviously with Newgarden has been extremely strong over the last few races, even though he only just got his first win. So I think you'll see him, he's going to be up in the top 2-3 shortly. I think Dixon will make another run. It's going to be tough to beat Palou. Palou has been really, really strong, and I still see him, being there. But it's probably a 5-horse race right now between Palou, Ward, Dixon, Ericsson, and Newgarden. I don't see Pagenaud or any of the other guys behind him being, in the top 2 or 3. They surely can move up, but it's going to be exciting. There's a lot of racing left, and anything can happen, as you know. But based on what Newgarden did last week in testing at Laguna Seca, he seems to be strong. He's going to Nashville, which is his hometown. You look for him to be strong there. Surely wants a good showing for his hometown crowd. So, he's if anybody's a long shot, it's probably not him based on what he's done in the past. Plus 2-time champion.
So we look at this top 6 here. We got Chip Ganassi. We got 3 Chip Ganassi guys, 2 Penske guys, and 1 Era McLaren. Now, Award's probably going to go to Formula One in the future. We know that's coming. But the big dogs are still leading the pack here. With Penske, though, they have not had a good year winning-wise, but they're still doing well in the standings. So does a Penske guy come back and win? Do you think Newgarden does it this year? Gets another championship?
I think he's got the best shot of winning. His seat's secure for next year. He doesn't have to worry about that. He can concentrate on that. Simon Pagenaud does not have a deal yet for next year, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Obviously, he's going to continue to be strong, but I think if anybody out of the Penske stable is going to be winning the championship, it's going to be Joseph Newgarden.
Yeah, definitely. So we're going to talk about the lost momentum here. Now they had a month off. It will be a month from their last race to the current race that's coming up in a week in Nashville. Now this is rough because IndyCar is one of those niche sports as it is. I mean, we love IndyCar, but we're focused on baseball and football a little bit over the past month just because of how they form the standings. Now, COVID did cancel a race that was going to take place in Toronto, right?
That is correct.
So it took, and the same thing happened with Formula One. They're no longer able to race there this year either. But I mean, do you think we should have got another race scheduled in this month so we didn't have a whole month off?
Well, it's a lot to try to schedule things, especially late in the season. I think they pulled the plug, relatively early on the Toronto race, which possibly would have given them time to put another race in. But you know what it takes to pull a race weekend off. I mean, it's a carnival, right, coming into town, and it is disappointing that they had such a break because they had a lot of momentum coming in. The TV standings have been excellent so far this year. There's a lot of interest in racing. It's on the cusp of actually getting to be a pretty popular sport. I think NASCAR has actually lost a little bit of luster, and there's a lot of interest in open wheel racing and IndyCar. So they didn't need this to stall their interest for sure. So.
Yeah, and you say IndyCar is gaining a following. We didn't schedule this for the show tonight to talk about, but the new TV deal with NBC, they're going to be exclusively on what's the app? Peacock for 2 races a year, and then they got a bunch of other stuff going on NBC. So the coverage is going to start improving every year in America, and also we're getting bigger overseas because of guys like Romain Grosjean, we were going to focus on a little later. I know he's going to be your favorite driver next year. I guarantee it.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite drivers this year. So, only because I followed Formula One, I knew he was coming over here. So, there was a lot of interest, and he's actually done extremely well, proven himself out. But because of him being strong over here, now it's looking like IndyCar is a destination, where before IndyCar was not necessarily a destination for European drivers. They were trying to get into Formula One, but Formula One is limited to 20 drivers in the world, and the next best series potentially could be IndyCar, which has actually proven itself out right now. So pretty hot.
Yeah, and especially races like Nashville. I mean, Nashville is just going to be a big party. We got the itinerary for it. Go out and check that out on Music City Grand Prix. It's a massive party. It's bringing a lot of attention to IndyCar. People that may not be racing fans are still going to attend, and that's just going to help grow the sport, which is really cool to see. So we're going to talk about things that have happened in the past month. We got Laguna Seca, California testing. Joseph Newgarden and Colton Herta shined here. They led the pack. Now Newgarden, no surprise there. Colton Herta, when you look at his standings, if you haven't really watched many races, you might say, oh, he hasn't performed well, but Herta's done pretty well. He's faded late in races. He just hasn't been able to finish. He finished earlier in the season, got a win, but still looking for. Andretti's had some trouble overall. That's what it comes down to.
It does. I mean, he's been strong. I mean, he's the strongest. He's the strongest in the team. Followed, pretty closely by Rossi, but after the halfway season, and you've got 1 win and 2 podiums total, it's pretty disappointing for a 4-car team as strong as Andretti.
Yeah, but you look at Penske, I mean, they're kind of getting the same results. They're just performing better. They're getting more podiums. They're getting more top 5s. I mean, that's why they're in the top of the standings. But still, I mean, Penske and Andretti have been bad this year when you really think about
it. They haven't had the years they've had past, but, keep in mind, up until this year, it was really Penske, Ganassi, and Andretti. Those were the teams to be on. Now you've seen some of these second, I won't even see second-rate teams, but you've got a lot of strong teams that are not in the traditional Ganassi, Penske, and Andretti circle. So, Aaron McLaren's been strong. Ed Carpenter Racing's been strong. You've got Rahal Letterman Lanagan's been strong. And then obviously Helio Castroneves with Meyer-Shank Racing. Meyer-Shank gets their first win in IndyCar with him this year. So you're seeing, traditional backmarker teams, not to even mention Dale Coyne with Grojean. I mean, he's had a podium. I mean, they're actually a lot of really, really good teams. And part of the reason for that, Tanner, is the fact that the cars from a chassis perspective are very similar. And the engine, there's only 2 engine manufacturers, Honda and Chevrolet. So the engineering on those teams is so close. because they're basically driving in the same equipment. So it really does come down to a little bit of engineering, but drivers make it go. It's how I saw this last night. I thought it was pretty good. It's how hard they can push the accelerator and how much they don't push the brake. That's who wins races typically in cars like this. So there's a lot of factors involved in racing with teams and pit stop strategies and so forth. But there are a lot of good teams right now. So it's not quite like Formula One. It's Formula One. It's 2 teams, 3 teams at best that have a chance to win a race, and everybody else is just they call mid-pack teams for a reason, because they're never going to be in the front of the pack. I don't see that as much on the IndyCar circuit, especially over the last year or so.
Yeah, and you look at Arrow McLaren, you look at Pato O'Ward. I mean, like he has transformed this team. That's a team that has a lot of funds. They're in Formula One, but he's a driver that's come in and made this team something special. You look at Elio with Meyer-Shank. There's no reason Meyer-Shank should win the Indianapolis 500. There's no reason, but the reason is Elio Castroneves is driving the car.
Absolutely. And they may have another winner next year, former Indy 500 winner in their stable when we get to the silly season discussion.
Drive for 5. All right. So oval testing at Worldwide Tech Raceway. We have 11 drivers from 5 teams tested. The big news out of this that I saw, at least, was Romain Grosjean was making his first turns on an oval. This is big stuff coming from Formula One. It's intimidating. I've never stepped in IndyCar before besides at the Indy Hall of Fame, and it wasn't moving at all. But you look at this, it's intimidating to get an oval when you're a street course guy.
Well, keep in mind, these guys grow up in road courses. There's no oval racing in Europe that they really can take part in. So when he came over here, obviously he had a horrible crash last year in his last Grand Prix. Lucky to live. I think part of that not going into ovals was because it is scary. I mean, it's you're driving 230 miles an hour around a track in a race car for 500 or 200 laps. It's a lot to ask from somebody. So part of that was, I think, the fact that he was coming off that crash, and number 2, never really had the experience to do it. So when he did the deal with Dale Coyne this year, it was all the races except for the ovals. But he's a racer, right? So racers want to race. His family was actually came over here. They saw him for the first time in a race car in the U.S. At the test, and he's going to run the race on the 21st of August, and look for him to be strong, I think. So I think he was only about a half a second behind Colton Herta, your guy, for the number 1 spot. But he had a really, really good test, and I think he impressed a lot of people, the fact that he never sat in an oval track before.
Yep. So, I'm surprised, one thing before we continue breaking down this oval, that you haven't seen Romain Grosjean's YouTube channel. Like, he's vlogging his whole trip, his whole cross-country trip with his family.
Right.
Yeah. Have you watched it yet?
I've watched just a couple watched a couple interviews and so forth. He's actually pretty popular.
Yeah.
He's pretty popular. He's got quite a showing in the U.S. already, because there are a lot of closet Formula One racers, race fans over here. So I think he's come in here, done a really good job, and he's a friendly guy, and he's very crowd friendly. Signs autographs, talks to people. He's taking it all in. As you know, they rented a motorhome, and his family's over here, and they're basically doing a cross the country U.S. tour while they're doing it. So look for him to be in this series for a long time now.
Yeah. So 11 drivers from 5 teams tested at the Worldwide Tech Raceway. Andretti had 4 cars in the top 6. Now, if you're Michael, if you're looking at this, is this something you can build off for the rest of the season, or is we're done anyways? I'm already thinking of 2022 and who's going to be driving my cars.
Well, he's cars race on ethanol and money. So basically, you can put a lot of ethanol in a car, but if you don't have sponsors, you're not going too far. And so it's important, I think, that they have strong, sponsorship packages and be able to, continue to race. I mean, look at your shirt. You got so many sponsors on your shirt, and That's pretty apparent in just about any Andretti car. And that being said, he's got to have a strong showing, but there's good possibility 2 out of their 4 drivers won't be back next year. There'll be new drivers in those seats. So I think it was important that he had a strong test. Now keep in mind that there was not any Ganassi cars there or McLaren cars there, and there was only one Penske car there, Scott McLaughlin. So they had an opportunity to do well, but they had a good run. So it is important that they can do that.
Yeah, I mean, well, Joseph Newgardens, he's doing so much media in Nashville right now. He's not focused on testing. He's focused on winning in his hometown. That's going to be an epic race. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But tomorrow we have Portland International Raceway testing. We're going to have 10 cars between Ganassi, Meyer-Shank, and Arrow McLaren. Now the Ganassi guys are leading the pack. Obviously, do you think they dominate here tomorrow?
I think they probably do. I don't know who's actually going for Meyer-Shank, but I would imagine Ilio will be there, and so will Jack Harvey. But all 4 Ganassi drivers will be up there, and Arrow McLaren. Now they're getting ready for the race on, I think it's September 12th, which is the Portland Grand Prix. Always a popular stop on the tour, and at this point, some of the cars won't be there because they're on their way to Nashville for next week. So, but I think Ganassi's going to be really strong. I mean, they're strong. Every car they've got has a chance to win a race, so they always do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking for Palou to be strong. I'm looking for Scott Dixon too. I think Scott Dixon's a guy. He just goes under the radar all the time. I know he's won championships. He's won the Indy 500, but he just finishes. Like he wins because he finishes and he takes risks, but he makes sure that he's going to go out. He's going to get a top 5, top 10, whatever it is, and just score points. Does Scott Dixon, I mean, we know he has a chance to win, but do you think that strategy is going to get him there with the young guns coming up in IndyCar? Like you said, it's foot on the gas wins. These guys are going to take risks. Scott Dixon's probably a little more calculated at this point in time. So what's your thoughts on that?
Well, what they say, to finish first, you got to finish, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So he finishes races. That consistency actually gives him a really good opportunity to be right up there in the top spot. That being said, Palou's finished just about every race this year too. So you can't count Scott Dixon out. Is he having the season he had last year? No, but he's been really strong and he's sitting in 3rd place in the standings. So you'll see a big run out of Dixon. He's not over the hill yet. I mean, obviously he's in his early 40s, but 6-time champion. He's close. I think very close to surpassing Mayor Andretti for the number 2 in wins of all time. I think you'll see that happen. Whether it happens this year or whether it happens early next year, that's gonna happen. He's not done racing yet.
Yeah, and you talk about the young guys having to finish first. Since we haven't had racing in so long, the only thing I'm thinking of is the F1 race in France when Verstappen and Hamilton were going at it, and Verstappen crashes on the first lap because he was just so aggressive right off the bat. But there's no need to, and now it's a race in the standings because he didn't finish.
Well, that was actually Silverstone in England. But I won't.
Well, I'm not a Formula One guy.
There you go. That was the last race, but yeah, no, they were racing the first lap like you would race the last lap, and unfortunately, whoever's fault it was, there's a lot of debate over who that happened. But Verstappen's out. Hamilton actually closes within 8 points now. Verstappen would have just, if he would have finished the race, he'd be 25, 30 points ahead no matter where he was at. Now he's in a tight battle. So, but it's a young guy versus experience. So,
yeah. So we're going to stick with IndyCar because America. Silly season in IndyCar. The biggest news, we'll start with the biggest news, obviously. You got the shirt on. Elio returns in 2022 for a full season with Meyer-Shank, the hashtag Drive for 5. They're already labeling it. They already got T-shirts made. They don't care about anything next. The only race they care about is the Indy 500 next year. I mean, do you think Elio really cares about an IndyCar Series championship?
Well, I think he'd love to have an IndyCar Series championship, but 5 Indy 500 wins is definitely on the on his marquee. I mean, that's what he's looking to do. There's nobody's ever done that. He wants to hold that record by himself instead of being up there with four, which they call the Mount Rushmore of Indianapolis, the four drivers, Foyt, Unser, Mears, and now Castroneves. So I think that's really, really a big goal. He won that race. That got him a full season. Leo is racing, I think, 6 more races this year, starting next week with Nashville. So you'll see how motivated he is on the street courses, and I think he is running the one oval at Gateway. But that being said, he's there for a full season. He's got a good shot at it, but his sight is definitely set on Indy, no doubt about it.
So obviously when he goes, someone has to, or when he comes in, someone has to go. Jack Harvey will be leaving Meyer-Shank Racing there. Harvey's expected to take Takuma Sato's seat with Rahal Letterman Lanagan Racing. Now, I'm going to make a bold take here. I want to get your opinion on this, but do you think Sato is the best driver in the sport who nobody talks about?
Again, to finish first, you've got to finish. He's won both Indy 500s with not leading a lot of laps. He's a good driver, but he's a very good driver that people don't really talk about because he's not up there flashy. He's Japanese. He does speak English fine, no problem. He was a Formula One driver, but realistically, he's at the tail end of his career. I mean, he's in his early 40s. He's had some strong showings, but he won Indy last year because he was still running at the end and had some great strategy. His teammate crashed. The yellow flag came out. They didn't run the last 2 laps under green. So who knows what would have happened? But you can't deny it. He's a 2-time Indy 500 champion. That's not many people have done 1 versus 2. So. But I think he's looking to put a package together to stay at least in the sport part-time. But there's a good possibility that he's going to lose that full-time seat.
Yeah, I mean, if you even think back to this year's Indy 500, if there's another caution, if a caution comes out late, he probably could have won that race.
He possibly could have won the race. He's strong. I mean, he's very strong. You don't win races by not being strong. But ultimately, I think Jack Harvey is a younger guy coming up. He's got good sponsorship package behind him. That does happen. Money does talk, and that's a good shot to him to get on a good team. So it might be a step up for him.
Yeah. So we'll go to the hottest driver on the market is Romain Grosjean. He has taken over the sport. The man has taken over the sport. He's currently with Dale Coyne Racing. Now, Andretti's got some open spots. Penske could have an open spot. Where do you think he's going to go?
Well, according to Marshall Pruitt, who writes for Racer Magazine, he feels it's a lock in the number 28 car, which is currently occupied by Ryan Hunter-Reay. So there's a good shot that Grojean will be there with a really good package and potentially a Honda team driver, which gives him a pretty good guarantee, financially too. But we've also heard that he could end up in Penske's 4th car. So that would be pretty wild too. So he's going to be on a good team. I think, whether he ends up at Andretti or ends up at Penske, you look to him to be on a top team next year. Right now,
yeah. I mean, if he did make it to Andretti, I mean, Colton Hurd is the headliner of that team. Would you agree with that?
He is the headliner, no doubt.
But I mean, you get a guy like Romain Grosjean, who the IndyCar fans are absolutely loving right now. I remember I saw a clip on Twitter. He was, I forget what race it was, but he was walking into like the medical tent or something. One of the fans said, "Hey, Formula One." He's like, no, IndyCar. I'm all about IndyCar now. So he loves it here, and that's appealing to IndyCar fans who are very passionate about the sport, as you can see from just attending one race.
Yeah.
So James Hinchcliffe is leaving Andretti. And Hinchcliffe's a guy that a lot of people love, and he's leaving Andretti.
Well, keep in mind he was a really hot driver, got in a really bad accident in Indy, almost died, bled to death. Scraped his way back, was doing some part-time, doing a little bit of part-time driving and announcing. And then he got a full-time ride back with Andretti. Although again, he's not had a strong season, but none of the Andretti drivers have really had a strong season. I'll say arguably besides Colton Herta. But most likely he's going to leave that seat next year. So it looks like 2 of the 4, because only Rossi and Herta are locked up for next year. So most likely 2 of those seats are going to be occupied by new drivers.
I mean, I think if Romain Grosjean moved in the way he's kind of taking over IndyCar, I think it'd be Herta, Grosjean, Rossi. Even that's probably a bold statement because Rossi is very popular as well.
Well, you got, Rossi's a former Indy 500 champion.
What you do for me today, though, Jimmy?
It's always what you do for me today.
Yeah,
don't ever forget that one.
What you do for me today, Romain Grosjean's he's not the future because he's old or he's getting up there, but he's still got
his 30s. He's only in his mid-30s, so he's still got a lot of racing left, and most likely he's all in because he's not going back to Formula One. So, look to again. Remember what I said. What drives cars? Ethanol and money.
There you go.
Ethanol and money. That's my statement. So
put it on a t-shirt.
Put it on a t-shirt. Ethanol and money drives those cars around the track. So, one of the things that you're going to see is the more interest and the more international interest, the more money pours in, which makes the sport stronger. More people are interested in it. You went to one race, you're hooked, right? So people just got to get out there and get exposed to it. So,
well, I can't wait to go. I'm going to be even more hooked after Nashville. It's supposed to be the second largest race of the year on the calendar moving forward. So we're going to talk about Hinchcliffe's seat. It's going to be filled by 2 guys who are in Indy Lights right now, Dillion DoFrancesco or Kyle Kirkwood. Kirkwood leads Indy Lights. Both these guys are going to get a chance at the show next year, but only one will probably end up in Hinchcliffe's seat. Again, there are some other great free agents out there right now, though, too, so you just never know. But out of these 2, who do you see going to Andretti? They're both driving for Andretti right now in Indy.
The rumor has Dillion DoFrancesco going into the Andretti seat, and Kirkwood is his teammate. They're both driving for Andretti now. Kirkwood leads the Indy Lights series, but there's also been some rumor that Kirkwood ends up in a Penske seat in that 4th car, taking over Pagenaud. So that's my take so far on it. But I guess we'll see over the next couple of weeks what actually plays out here.
Now, if you're Roger and you're sitting there on top of your suite at the Indy 500, you're looking down over the track and you're thinking, would I rather go with a guy like Kyle Kirkwood or Dillion DoFrancesco, who's got a lot of promise, or go with a Romain Grosjean, who, I know what I'm going to get out of him at least?
Well, history repeats itself, right? And Penske has done a great job over the years of putting young guys in seats that ultimately develop into great drivers. And the list is long. You don't have to look too far, but he likes to pick drivers that have a couple 3 years experience and then put them in. So Kirkwood going as a rookie, I think McLaughlin going this year coming out of Australia or New Zealand, wherever he was from, going into the Penske 4th car was a surprise. I think a lot of people were really shocked that Roger put somebody in that never really raced in the U.S. That being said, he's also normally takes drivers that are in the series for a year or 2 or 3 before he moves them up, and it's exactly what happened with Joseph Newgarden. He was on another team, ran a couple 3 years, got a lot of interest, and then ends up at Penske. So I think there's probably a better shot of Grojean going there than I would say somebody coming out of Indy Lights. That's just my opinion. But money's not necessarily a problem with Roger because, Roger's got plenty of sponsorships. But a lot of these guys have to bring money to the table to actually get a seat. So especially the, mid-pack teams, if you want to call it that.
So F1, again, taking over the sport with Grojean. He's coming here. Now you got Alex Albon, drives for Red Bull. He got demoted from a driver to a test driver. What do they call it?
Basically test driver, yeah, test driver.
So he's looking for a full-time seat. He might do it here in America. Where's he going to go?
Well, there's talk about Albon going into that Andretti car. There's a possibility that the Andretti car, potentially the Penske car, or even an Arrow car. That's rumor has it at this point. But Alex Albon may not get another ride in Formula One. He's 25 years old. What's he going to do? He spent basically a year and a half on Red Bull as the number 2 driver to Max Verstappen. Didn't have a great run. They demoted him. There's a possibility he'll get back, but ultimately, are you going to stay being a test driver for Red Bull, or are you going to come in and be a top driver in the IndyCar series? So that is a question. But look to see somebody from Europe coming back, coming over here for sure.
Now, did he drive with Daniel Ricciardo with Red Bull?
No, actually he didn't.
They missed each other.
They missed each other. Yeah. So it was Daniel Ricciardo was the number 1 driver,
Verstappen.
And Verstappen was the number 2 driver. Daniel Ricciardo leaves. Verstappen gets promoted to number 1 driver with Pierre Gasly. Then Gasly gets demoted. They bring in Albon. It's all about performance with those guys. If they're not performing, they don't give them a lot of time. So,
yeah.
What'd you do for me today is really important over there.
You got a lot of sayings today.
Hey,
you got a lot of sayings. You've been off for a month. Haven't worked for a month. You're ready to go.
I know. I got a couple new ones today too. So I haven't had a chance to actually use my, my head full of just years worth of quotes.
Racing.
So now you're seeing some of them.
Okay, so you got Santino Ferrucci. You got a couple more names here. Santino Ferrucci, Oliver Askew, looking for homes. We don't know if they're going to get a full-time home, but if they were to, where do you think they'd end up? I imagine like a smaller end team.
Well, there is a couple spots right now for those teams. I mean, if Grojean exits Dale Coyne Racing is going to have an opening for a full-time driver. All right, that could be Askew, could be Ferrucci. Ferrucci's run a number of races for Rahal Letterman Lanagan this year. They're looking to put a 3rd car in for the whole season. So that could be Jack Harvey and somebody else. It could be Askew. He was a full-time driver 2 years ago, and then got injured. Come back. He ran a couple races this year as a fill-in driver for a couple other teams. So you'll see maybe one of those 2 guys. Ferrucci he's had a really good run. I mean, he's done really, really well every time he's been in the seat. Why, I don't know, why he's not getting a full-time ride. I'm not exactly sure, but there were talk that he was going to go to NASCAR. But he's a good driver and he's young and he's actually from Connecticut. So we're proud of him here too. So it'd be nice to see him in the series, full-time.
Who I think we're forgetting about what team? We're going to have another full-time team with Pareto Autosport next year.
Well,
yeah, we're at Pareto Autosports. I know it's all women, but we're gonna have another driver there.
Well, you think so?
I don't know if it's going to be Simona Di Silvestro, but yeah, because IndyCar's got the inclusion thing going. They're trying to get more minority and women in the sport. So right. I think we're going to have another team there. So just never know. We're going to get some shakeup. Maybe some of these drivers end up on those teams. You don't know.
Yeah, it's possible. It'd be nice to see a little bit more cars. I mean, keep in mind, Formula One's got 20 cars. IndyCar's been fielded somewhere between 23 and 26 cars a race. It'd be nice to get 26, 28 cars up there on a consistent basis. Obviously, Indy 500 has 33 cars, but it'd be nice to have those teams. And there's a lot of strong teams. I mean, you got people that can win, even in some of those back market teams. So it's important.
The Indy 500, the testing or the trials qualifying was not super exciting this year because there just weren't enough cars to make it exciting.
Right.
You want to see 40 cars line up and 33 get in instead of whatever was 35.
Yeah, well, that's been the way. I mean, those cars cost a lot of money, so it's not like where people used to build them in their garage and drive them on a trailer to the 500, see if they could get in the show. Those days are over, But realistically, you're not going to see 45 cars show up anyway. But people have a lot of one-off drives to get in there and so forth. So
yeah. So we got Simon Pagenaud. Simone. I'm thinking of Simone Biles, man.
You love Simone. You love Simona.
Simone. I'm thinking Simone
Silvestri.
I'm thinking of Simone Biles. All these Simones running around the news.
We won't go there.
So we got Simon Pagenaud.
This is not about gymnastics today.
It's racing.
This is racing, boy.
So we got Simon Pagenaud. Final news of the night. He needs to renew his deal with Team Penske. Now, Team Penske, there's no surprise or no secret who the star of Team Penske is. It's Joseph Newgarden. Willpower follows that. But I don't really hear about Pagenaud much. You don't hear about Pagenaud much, but you don't really hear about Power as much. He has not had a great year. It's Joseph Newgarden's team. But Pagenaud probably is a headlining driver somewhere else. Do you think he's going to re-sign, or do you think he's going to go somewhere?
Well, rumor has it that he may end up on Meyer-Shank's, that second car at Meyer-Shank. And it would be 2 former Penske drivers and 2 former Indy 500 winners on that team. That could give them a lot of credibility. Supposedly he's not been real happy with Penske, even though he's sitting in the top 6, I think. Is he 6th in the standings right now?
Yep.
So he's quietly had a decent year, but he has not been he's not been any. I don't think he's been on podium, and he's not been even close to winning a race this year. He's just quietly, consistently done some running. But he's tail end of his career, as is Will Power, getting up there. They're getting up in their 40s, and there's life after Indy for 40-year-old drivers. A lot of these guys are going to the IMSA prototype series. There's been some discussion about him being a part-time driver in Indy and doing some IMSA, as is Ryan Hunter-Reay. So does Pagenaud renew the deal with Penske? I'd say it's 50-50 at this point. I see, either Penske having a 3-car team, or they bring in a young guy to fill his spot. So, especially if you're not happy. I mean, if Pagenaud's not happy with the team, what's going to make him happy? He's got to beat Newgarden. I don't think he's going to do that.
No, Newgarden should have about 3 wins under his belt this year instead of 1. Just the way he's performed late, or his cars perform late, or his teams perform late. So, you agree with that?
I agree totally. I was on the Joseph Newgarden bandwagon for 3 races in a row, and he basically almost won all 3 of them in 1-1. And who picked him to win? We
picked we both doing like 2 out of 3 every podium. We've pretty much, so we've been pretty good. All right, so look ahead at the Music City Grand Prix. We will be there, Sports 2.0 content team down there covering the Music City Grand Prix. Going to be in Nashville, Tennessee, Titan Stadium. They go around the parking lot there. They go on the Korean War Memorial Veterans Bridge. They're going on a bridge at 200 miles an hour. People could end up in the ocean. Joseph Newgarden has already told Barstool Sports that they're going to have a diving rescue team there to save drivers who fall off the bridge. It's going to be wild there. And you look at all the country music acts as well. Going to be a big, big weekend for us. What are you looking forward to? We're going to have a preview show next Thursday to really break it down, but what are you most excited about?
I think it's exciting. I mean, I think, these temporary street courses are always pretty exciting, especially, when people can envision. I think one of the things that's attractive is after the race is people start driving on the course, and then they get into it even more, going, wow, the Indy cars were here just like, a few days ago and stuff. So they get drive the same course. It's not the ocean, by the way. It's just a river, but it is still pretty scary. That
I say ocean, body
of ocean.
Well, because I'm fired up. I want to see someone go into the water.
Yeah, well, no, we don't want to see that at all. But it is pretty scary, and they go over that bridge twice on every lap. So
and they're coming like this way.
Right. Yeah. So it's going to be pretty exciting. So not to mention it's country music city right there, boy. It's like bring your cowboy hat and your cowboy boots and listen to some country music and get into IndyCar. I think last time they raced in Nashville was, I think, 13 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, 2008, and it was on an oval. It's pretty exciting that they're gonna be back in town. And in fact, the other rumor was they were trying to fill an extra race. They were trying to actually have an oval race there too. So you may see them come back there. The one thing is for next year, they're looking to bring a couple more ovals back into the series. So it's not going to be all street and road courses.
Well, that's exciting. Yeah, we don't want to see anyone go in the water. That was just a joke. Just got to throw it out there so I don't get canceled by racing fans. But anyways, that does it for the show tonight. Make sure you subscribe to the Sports 2.0 Network on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, guys, all that good stuff. Follow along. You're going to get more updates on what we're doing down in Nashville, all the content we'll be putting out. And we'll also have a preview show next Thursday.
Next Thursday sounds good.
Next Thursday, same time. So we'll be
same
rocking
time,
and rolling
same
there.
Place.
Same time, same place. And then we're off to Nashville on Friday. So exciting stuff. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for inviting me.
There you go. Well, you're a co-host, so I got to invite you. All right. That does it, guys. We'll talk to you soon. If you're interested in baseball, make sure to head over to the YouTube channel. About 15 minutes. We're going to have a trade deadline show there talking about all the stuff going on.
You got to change your shirt, though.
I got to change shirt. Got a new Red Sox jersey got to put on. So that does it, guys. We will talk to you soon for another episode of the Sports 2.0 show.